Grandpa's Christmas Tree Story, written and narrated by William Zoldak and illustrated by Misti Feliciano. Dear grandchildren, today I want to tell you a Christmas story which I hope will give you a little understanding of the way Christmas traditions were celebrated in the 1950s. Every year in December, my elementary school allowed each classroom to decorate a Christmas tree. One day, while I was sitting in my second grade class, the teacher asked if anyone knew where a Christmas tree could be obtained for our classroom that year. Not thinking about everything that would be involved, I raised my hand and offered to provide the tree. Although I think the teacher was a little skeptical, she agreed to let me bring it in anyway. I told her that I would have it there the next morning. I was very proud to be the Christmas tree provider for that year, and that was about all I could think about the rest of the day. By the time I got on the school bus in the afternoon, however, reality was beginning to set in. Obtaining a tree was not a problem, as there was an old pasture full of red cedar trees near my house. I was sure the owner of the farm next door, whom I knew pretty well, would have no objection to my removing one tree from his pasture. The difficult part was going to be transporting the tree to school the next morning. You see, I lived 2 miles from the school, and I couldn't ask my father for help because he left for work very early in the morning, and we only owned one car. The only way that I could think of to transport the tree was to drag it there myself. By the time I got off the school bus, I had everything pretty well worked out, or at least I hoped I did. I changed out of my school clothes, grabbed an old bucksaw from the shed, and went looking for the best tree I could find. There were several hundred to choose from. Before long, I had located the perfect one. The tree I chose was beautiful in every way. It was about 8 feet high with a straight trunk, perfectly shaped from top to bottom, and completely full on all sides. When I got home, I tied a rope to the trunk and prepared it for the journey the next morning. I went to bed that night completely confident that everything was ready to go off as planned in the morning. The next morning I got up early, ate breakfast, and started on my way. At first the plan seemed to work pretty well. As I pulled the tree down the long driveway, the tree seemed to slide along very nicely. However, after about a half mile on the main road, I started to get tired, which caused my progress to slow to a snail's pace. By the time I had gone another 200 yards, I was so exhausted and out of breath and sweating so much that every step required all the strength I could gather. It was becoming clear to me that my dream of providing the classroom Christmas tree was heading for failure. When I was just about ready to give up, the school bus pulled up alongside of me. The door opened and our school bus driver, old Ernie, said in a gruff voice, "What the heck are you doing?" When I explained why I was dragging a Christmas tree to school, he gave me a funny look and said sternly, "That's a stupid thing to do." Now Ernie was not your typical bus driver. He was a man of very few words who had the reputation of being the meanest bus driver in the world. No one on our school bus ever misbehaved out of fear of what he might do. The school bus was almost completely full of students and heading toward the school when it stopped alongside of me. Everyone on the bus was staring out the window with strange looks on their faces, wondering what Ernie was going to do next. Ernie then turned to me and said, "I want you to put the tree through the emergency door in the back of the bus." He instructed a couple of the older boys to help me, which they did reluctantly, but without question. The tree slid through the door, over the seats, and down into the center aisle, striking the students in the faces as it moved into place. I'm sure that some of the kids would have complained on any other bus, but no one dared to say a word with old Ernie as the driver. When we arrived at the school, a couple of other problems surfaced. When the tree was placed in the bus, the branches were going in the right direction. However, on the way out, they had to be pushed in and held tightly to the trunk so that they wouldn't break. The whole tree, especially the fat part, had to be lifted above the seats and moved slowly toward the back through the door and out with great care. All the time this was happening, many students were stuck in place until the extraction process was complete. Fortunately, Hooker, our school janitor, saw what was happening and came to the rescue. After the tree was finally out, Hooker and I, well, mostly Hooker, hauled it into the school, up 2 flights of stairs, and into the classroom. At this point, I was feeling pretty good until the teacher arrived and wanted to know how the tree was going to stand up. Just as I was about to admit that I had no idea how to stand the tree up, Hooker came to the rescue again. He told the teacher that he would help me build a stand for the Christmas tree in his workshop in the basement. So I went down with Hooker to his workshop, where he taught me how to build a Christmas tree stand out of some scraps of wood he had lying around. About a half hour later, the tree was standing in the corner of the classroom, ready to be decorated. As you can imagine, I was greatly relieved. In those days, school Christmas trees were decorated with things that were handmade by the students. Popcorn and cranberry chains, ornaments cut out of construction paper, pine cones, and nuts shaped into objects, and they were all hung on the tree with great care and ingenuity. Christmas tree lights were not allowed in schools, so strips of aluminum foil were added for brightness. When the tree was completely decorated, it looked pretty nice, in a rustic sort of way. Truth be told, I was pretty proud of it. But I also knew that it had been something of a Christmas miracle that the gruff, old, scary bus driver and his cohort, the janitor, stepped in at the last minute to make a dream a reality. Our class received many compliments during the holiday season that year, and I don't think that our tree was any better than any other tree, but it was the only one that came in on a school bus. Through this experience, my relationship with old Ernie, the bus driver, and Hooker, the janitor, developed into a long and mutual friendship that lasted throughout my school days. However, Ernie never did change his mind about it being a stupid idea. Well, that's my Christmas tree story. I hope you enjoyed it. Love, as always, Grandpa.